The twin suns of Vera burned low against the horizon, their light falling across the dusty plains of the human colony. The colony was small compared to the great cities of other alien civilizations. Metal houses stood close together, patched with whatever materials the settlers could find. People walked the narrow streets with tired faces but determined steps. Life on Vera had never been easy, but humans were used to struggle. Captain Arik Thorne stood at the edge of the landing field, his arms folded as he watched the alien transport ship descend. Its sleek silver hull gleamed like a polished blade, casting a long shadow over the cracked ground. Around him, other colonists gathered, whispering to one another with a mix of hope and doubt. For years, humans had asked the Galactic Council for help. Their colony lay on the border of lawless space, and pirate fleets often raided their trade routes. Other species, members of the Great Council, had powerful fleets to guard their worlds. But humans were still new to the galaxy. Their ships were small, their weapons outdated. Alone, they could not stand against the dangers that surrounded them. So they had asked for protection. They had begged for aid. Today, they were finally going to receive an answer. The alien ship touched down with a hiss of steam. Its ramp lowered, and a delegation of tall figures stepped out. They were representatives of the Council, blue-skinned Altherians, golden-armored Drekkins, and insectoid Quarians whose many eyes glimmered with cold amusement. They walked with the confidence of rulers who believed they owned the stars. The leader, a Drekkian named Varric, stepped forward. His voice carried across the field, translated into the human tongue by a device on his chest. "Humans of Vera," he said, "the Council has heard your request for protection. After much discussion, we have decided to grant you assistance." The colonists broke into murmurs of relief. Children clapped and old men sighed, thinking their prayers had been answered. Arik, however, kept his arms folded. He knew enough of alien politics to doubt easy gifts. With a gesture from Varric, the alien ship opened its cargo holds. One by one, piles of broken metal were dragged out. Bent hull plates, cracked engines, and weapon fragments lay in the dust like the bones of dead giants. Rust streaked the surfaces and sparks crackled from exposed wires. The colonists stared in silence. "Was this some kind of mistake?" "This," Varric announced, "is the Council's gift to you. Scrap from decommissioned warships, fragments from our glorious fleets. It is more than you deserve, but we offer it as a symbol of goodwill." A low wave of confusion rippled through the humans. Mothers looked at fathers and workers muttered angrily. Was this supposed to be protection? Broken junk instead of real weapons? Arik felt his jaw tighten. He stepped forward, his boots crunching against the dust. "Is this a joke?" he demanded. His voice was steady, but anger burned beneath it. "We asked for protection, for ships to defend our people. You give us trash." The alien delegates laughed softly, their voices cold and sharp. "Trash to you?" said the Altherian, her glowing eyes narrowing. "But perhaps a treasure to your kind. Humans are adaptable, are you not? You tinker with machines. You patch holes with glue and rope. Perhaps you will make use of this." The Quarian clicked its mandibles. "Or perhaps you will learn your place. The Council does not waste real ships on primitives." Laughter rose from the aliens as they turned back toward their ship. The piles of scrap remained behind, scattered like mockery across the landing field. The colonists' faces darkened with shame. Some lowered their heads. Others clenched their fists. Children tugged on their mothers' arms, asking why the aliens hated them so much. No one had an answer. Arik stood in the center, his gaze fixed on the broken metal. To most, it was useless. To him, it was a challenge. He had been an engineer before becoming a captain, and he knew machines better than most men knew their own families. He saw not what the scrap was, but what it could become. He turned to the crowd, raising his voice. "Let them laugh," he said. "They think they've humiliated us. But we will not bow. We will not remain weak. If this is what they give us, then this is what we will use. We will build something greater than they can imagine." The colonists looked at him uncertain, yet there was fire in his eyes, the kind of fire that spreads when all other lights go dark. Slowly, heads began to lift. "Captain," a young mechanic called out, "you think we can make something out of this junk?" Arik nodded firmly. "I don't think, I know. We may not have their resources, their fleets, their perfect factories, but we have something they don't. We have the will to survive. We will take their scraps and forge our own weapon, A ship that will not bow to pirates or to the council itself. The mechanic grinned, his doubt fading into excitement. Others began to murmur. The piles of scrap lay scattered across the dusty plain for days. At first, most colonists walked past them with disappointment, shaking their heads at the insult the Galactic Council had left behind. The pieces of broken engines, cracked hull plating, and half-melted weapons looked like nothing more than garbage. Children climbed over them for play, while elders muttered that humans had been treated like beggars. But Captain Arik Thorne did not see garbage. Every time he looked at the twisted metal, his mind turned with ideas. Where others saw cracks, he saw seams to weld. Where others saw junk, he saw possibility. He spent hours under the burning twin suns, pulling apart fragments, studying wiring, and sketching designs into a battered notebook. To the untrained eye, he looked like a man obsessed. To him, it was the beginning of something greater. One evening, as the red sun dipped low, Arik gathered the colonists in the old hangar that served as their meeting hall. Dust swirled in the air and lanterns flickered along the walls. Men, women, and children filled the seats, their voices hushed. Everyone wanted to hear what Arik had to say. He stepped forward, his uniform worn but his posture unyielding. His eyes scanned the crowd before he spoke. The council wanted to humiliate us, Arik began. They gave us their broken pieces and expected us to remain weak. But I tell you this, humans have never survived by being given what they needed. We survive by building with what we have. We take little and we make more, we adapt. That is our strength, the colonists murmured, leaning closer. I will not let their insult break us, Arik continued. Instead, I will use it as fuel. I want to build a ship. Not just any ship. A warship strong enough to defend Vera. It will be made from the very scrap they mocked us with. And when it rises into the sky, the galaxy will know the strength of humankind. The hall grew silent. Some looked inspired, others doubtful. At last, a miner raised his calloused hand. Captain, you're asking us to build a warship out of junk. Even if it can fly, it won't match the fleets of the Council. How can we succeed? Arik's voice was steady. We do not need to copy them. We need to be different. They build by tradition, by rules. They do the same things they've done for centuries. But humans, we improvise. We make do with what we have and we make it work. That is why they fear us, though they won't admit it. A mechanic named Lyra stood from her chair, grease smudging her hands. I'll help, she said firmly. I've seen you work, Captain. If anyone can turn this into something real, it's you. One by one, others rose. Miners who knew how to weld. Farmers who knew how to fix machinery. Pilots who longed for something better than the fragile ships they had now. By the end of the night, nearly every hand was raised. The colony had chosen to believe. The next morning, work began. The landing field became a sea of sparks and smoke as humans dragged piles of scrap into organized heaps. Teams worked with torches and tools, stripping broken ships of useful parts. Children carried water to the workers, and old men sorted wires and bolts. Arik worked among them, not as a commander but as one of their own. His hands were burned from welding, his clothes blackened by soot, but his spirit never wavered. They started with the frame. From bent Drekian hulls, they cut away the ruined sections and reforged the rest into strong plates. From Altherian alloys, they discovered strange metals that could resist heat better than anything they had known. The Quarian fragments carried unusual circuits, which the engineers carefully rewired into control systems. Piece by piece, the skeleton of the ship began to take shape. At first, it seemed impossible. Engines failed to start and pieces refused to fit. Sparks showered across the hangars as systems overloaded. More than once, the workers argued, tempers flaring in the heat of frustration. One evening, when a test of the hybrid engine nearly caused an explosion, the mechanic Lyra slammed her wrench to the floor. This will never work, she shouted. These parts were never meant to fit together. We're wasting our time. The workers fell silent, fear and doubt heavy in the air. Arik stood before the smoking wreck of the engine, his face streaked with soot. For a moment, even he felt the weight of defeat pressing on him, but then he turned back to them. Do you think the Council ever believed we would succeed? Arik asked quietly. They gave us this scrap because they thought it was impossible. If we give up now, they win. But if we keep going, if we find a way, then we prove them wrong. And I will not give them that victory. His words struck deep. Slowly, the workers picked up their tools again. And though the road ahead was hard, they did not stop. Days turned into weeks. The shipyard became the heartbeat of the colony. Sparks lit the nights as welders worked long after sunset. The sound of hammers rang out each morning, echoing across the plains. The people of Vera, once mocked as weak, were building something together. Improvisation became their greatest weapon. Where parts refused to fit, they invented new connectors. Where engines failed, they rewired them with human designs. They combined alien shielding with human alloys, creating defenses no engineer had ever planned. They built weapons by fusing different technologies, making cannons that fired faster and struck harder than the originals. It was dangerous work. Fires broke out, explosions sent men flying, tools snapped in workers' hands. Yet each time they rebuilt stronger. Lyra, once doubtful, became one of the project's fiercest supporters. She discovered a way to stabilize the mismatched fusion drives, turning chaos into controlled power. Miners welded hull plates until their arms ached, laughing as they called the ship their child. Even children carved symbols into the metal, leaving their mark on the vessel that would one day protect them. Finally, the ship had a name. Orcs stood before the nearly completed vessel, its massive hull rising into the sky like a mountain of steel. The crowd gathered, their faces shining with pride despite exhaustion. This ship was born from insult, Orc declared. They thought we would remain weak, that we would break under their mockery. But we have turned their scraps into strength. This ship will carry our will into the stars. We name her the Dauntless. The crowd erupted in cheers. For the first time, they felt not like outcasts, but like builders of destiny. Still, whispers reached the colony. Spies from the council had heard rumors of what humans were doing. Reports spread of a strange warship being built from garbage. The alien delegates laughed when they heard, dismissing it as nonsense. Scrap tinkering, they sneered. The humans are amusing, nothing more. But others were not so certain. Pirates who had once raided the colony began to hesitate, wondering if the rumors were true. Traders who visited Vera carried stories of sparks and smoke, of a massive ship rising from the dust. And in the heart of the colony, Captain Arik Thorne looked up at the Dauntless with pride and determination. He knew the road ahead would not be easy. The ship was not yet tested and many dangers waited beyond the horizon, but for the first time in many years humanity had hope. The Dauntless stood like a giant shadow over the colony of Vera. Its hull was patched with strange metals, its engines built from mismatched parts, and its weapons a fusion of alien and human design. To outsiders it looked rough, almost broken before it even launched. But to the colonists it was beautiful. It was their creation, their hope, their answer to the insult the council had left behind. Inside the hangars, crews worked without rest. Engineers crawled through the narrow shafts, checking wires. Mechanics tightened bolts until their arms ached. Welders sealed the last plates of armor, sparks falling like stars. The air smelled of oil, smoke, and sweat, but spirits were high. Every clang of a hammer felt like a heartbeat, every weld a promise. Captain Arik Thorne walked through the busy hangar, his eyes sharp, his steps steady. He stopped to help wherever needed, lifting heavy crates, holding tools, guiding repairs. To his crew, he was not just a commander. He was one of them. Yet despite the progress, a shadow hung over their work. The Dauntless had never been tested in battle. Its hybrid engines were unproven, its weapons uncalibrated, its shields experimental. If it failed, the colony would be left defenseless. The trial came sooner than anyone expected. It began with a warning cry from the watchtowers at the edge of the plains. A fleet of pirate ships had been spotted entering the system. The alarm bells rang across the colony. Children were rushed inside their homes and families gathered in fear. The sky filled with streaks of fire as the pirate ships descended. Their hulls were black with scars, their weapons gleaming like hungry fangs. For years, these raiders had tormented Vera, stealing supplies, taking lives, and leaving destruction in their wake. They had grown bold because the colony had no protection. Now seeing the Dauntless, they laughed. To them it looked like a pile of junk welded into the shape of a ship. "This is what the humans built?" One pirate captain jeered over open channels. "A rusted coffin? Burn it, and take what we want." Arik stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, his hands gripping the rail as the colony below trembled. Around him, the crew scrambled into position. Lyra sat at the engineering console, sweat shining on her brow. Pilots checked targeting systems, and gunners loaded ammunition. Arik's voice cut through the noise. "This is the moment we built for. Today we prove to the galaxy that humans will not bow. Bring the Dauntless to life." Engines roared. The Dauntless shook as its mismatched drives came online. For a breathless moment, it seemed like the entire vessel might tear itself apart. Warning lights flashed, alarms screamed, and the crew braced for failure. Then, with a deep, thunderous hum, the engine stabilized. The ship rose from the ground, dust swirling in a storm around it. The colonists watching below cheered, their fear melting into awe. The Dauntless climbed into the sky, facing the pirate fleet head-on. The first volley came fast. Pirate cannons fired beams of red light scorching the air. Explosions flared against the Dauntless's shields, shaking the vessel. The crew clung to their stations as sparks rained from the ceiling. Shields holding, barely. Lyra shouted. Auric's voice was calm, but his heart pounded. Return fire. Show them what we built. The Dauntless unleashed its weapons. Hybrid cannons thundered, firing a storm of projectiles wrapped in energy fields. Lasers bent strangely around enemy shields, twisting through gaps no alien had ever thought to exploit. A jury-rigged railgun fired with a deafening roar, sending a glowing slug through the first pirate ship's hull. The pirate vessel erupted in flames, breaking apart in the void. Gasps filled the Dauntless's bridge. It worked. Their creation worked, but the battle had only begun. The pirate fleet regrouped, anger replacing their laughter. Dozens of ships swarmed around the Dauntless like vultures, firing from every direction. The vessel shook under the onslaught. Panels ripped from the walls, alarms blared, and smoke filled the corridors. Engineers rushed to seal ruptures, hands blackened with grease and blood. Engines overheating, Lyra cried. We can't keep this up. Auric clenched his fists. We don't need to keep it up. We need to outthink them. Redirect power from the secondary shields to the railgun. Aim for their command ship. The crew obeyed, rerouting energy through systems never meant to work together. The railgun glowed red, trembling with power. The Dauntless shuddered as if it would rip itself apart. Fire, Auric ordered. The shot tore through space like a comet. It smashed into the pirate flagship, splitting it into burning fragments. The smaller ships faltered, their formations breaking apart. Captain, they're retreating, one of the pilots shouted. On the screens, pirate vessels turned and fled, engines flaring as they vanished into the stars. The survivors abandoned the fight, leaving wreckage scattered across the void. The Dauntless floated amid the debris, scarred and smoking, but alive. On the ground below, the colony erupted into cheers, their voices echoing across the plains. Children danced in the streets, elders wept, and families hugged each other tightly. For the first time, they were safe. Inside the bridge, the crew slumped in exhaustion. Lyra wiped her forehead with a shaking hand, her voice hoarse. We did it. I can't believe it, but we actually did it. Auric looked around at them, pride shining in his eyes. Believe it, he said softly. This ship is more than metal and engines. It is the strength of our people. Today, the galaxy has seen what humans can do when they are pushed to the edge. The crew smiled, their fatigue forgotten in the glow of victory. But far beyond Vera, in the chambers of the Galactic Council, whispers spread like wildfire. Reports of the battle reached alien ears. Some dismissed it as lies, claiming no ship built from scrap could defeat a fleet. Others grew uneasy, remembering the stubbornness of humankind. In the shadows, spies spoke of a vessel unlike any other, one that bent the rules of physics, one that fought with the unpredictability of chaos. The Dauntless was no longer just a rumor. It was a reality, and for the first time the powerful council felt a flicker of unease. That night, under the twin suns, the colony of Vera celebrated. Fires burned in the streets as music filled the air. Workers raised their glasses, shouting the name of their ship with pride. Children painted pictures of the Dauntless, and elders told stories of the battle that would be remembered for generations. Auric stood on a hill overlooking the colony, the Dauntless looming in the sky above. He listened to the laughter, the cheers, the hope that now filled the air. For years, humanity had been treated as weak, mocked as primitive, but now they had proven themselves, yet Auric's eyes were thoughtful. Victory had come, but he knew it was only the beginning. The pirates had been defeated, but the council would not ignore what had happened. Humanity had drawn attention, and not all of it was good. He clenched his fists, his gaze fixed on the stars. They gave us scrap, he whispered, but we built our future, and if the galaxy wishes to test us again, we will be ready. Above him, the Dauntless gleamed under the starlight, scarred yet unbroken, a symbol of human defiance. The first trial was over, but greater challenges were waiting beyond the horizon. The victory over the pirate fleet had changed everything for Vera. The colony, once small and ignored, now held the attention of the galaxy. Traders whispered tales of the Dauntless, describing its strange hybrid design and the impossible victory it had achieved. Word traveled faster than any official announcement, and before long even members of the Galactic Council were taking notice. Inside the council chambers, tension hung like a storm cloud. Representatives from various species sat in polished seats, their glowing eyes and sharp antennae fixed on the reports being delivered. Screens showed images of the Dauntless, scarred but intact, rising triumphantly among the wreckage of the pirate fleet. Varric, the Drekian who had once mocked humanity, slammed his clawed hand on the table. "This cannot be," he roared. "A ship built from scraps, defeating a fleet of trained raiders? How is this possible?" "Humans are unpredictable," said an Altherian delegate calmly, though her voice carried a sharp edge of concern. "They are clever, stubborn, and reckless. That combination makes them dangerous. Perhaps we underestimated them." The Quarian representative clicked its mandibles in a low, angry rhythm. "Dangerous? They are primitive. They have no proper fleets, no real technology. If they survive, it is only through luck and improvisation. But luck cannot last forever." Yet even the Council could not ignore the facts. Reports confirmed that the Dauntless had not just survived, it had destroyed a pirate fleet and saved an entire colony. Other species whispered among themselves, questioning whether humans could truly be dismissed. Back on Vera, the colony celebrated, but the mood was tempered by the understanding that the galaxy had now turned its eyes toward them. Traders and travelers arrived, bringing gifts and supplies, and some asked to join the colony's defense effort. Refugees from nearby systems, tired of council oppression, offered their skills to the humans. Auric Thorn stood on the bridge of the Dauntless, gazing at the stars. The victory had been exhilarating, but he knew this was only the beginning. Humans were no longer invisible. They had shown strength, and strength attracts attention, both good and bad. Lyra, now one of his closest advisors, leaned over a console. "Captain, we have requests. Ships, crews, even diplomats. Everyone wants to know how we built the Dauntless and, more importantly, how we fight." Auric frowned. "We teach them nothing that could be used against us. The Dauntless is a symbol of humanity's ingenuity, not a blueprint for others. We will help allies, yes, but we will never give our enemies the same advantage." A young pilot, Jaren, looked at Auric with wide eyes. "Do you think the Council will try to stop us now?" he asked. Auric's jaw tightened. "They will. They can't allow humans to grow without their control. But they will not defeat us easily. The galaxy has underestimated humanity for too long. Now they will learn why we survive." The Council moved quickly. Delegations visited neighboring systems, attempting to sway species to their side. Propaganda spread, warning of the reckless humans who built weapons from scraps and defied orders. They painted the humans as dangerous and untrustworthy, yet the reaction was not uniform. Many smaller colonies, tired of council rules, saw hope in the humans' success. They had long lived under fear, unable to defend themselves. The tale of Vera's victory inspired them. They began to dream of independence, of building defenses and lives free from the Council's control. Auric knew the influence of the Dauntless extended beyond simple military power. It was a symbol of what humans could achieve with determination, creativity, and courage. That was the true power of the ship. It inspired others to believe in themselves. In the hangars of Vera, the human crew worked tirelessly. Repairs were made, improvements were tested, and new systems were installed. Every day brought new challenges. The Dauntless was not perfect, and even now its hybrid design required constant attention. Yet the crew thrived on problem-solving. Unlike alien species that relied on strict rules and established designs, humans excelled in improvisation. They combined old engines with alien circuitry, rewired weapons in new ways, and adapted shields that had never been used together before. The ship evolved daily, growing stronger and more capable. Auric walked through the ship, stopping to speak with engineers and pilots. He checked their systems, offered advice, and listened to suggestions. Leadership for him was not about command alone. It was about working alongside the people who made it happen. Lyra approached him one morning, holding a small prototype. "We've developed a new energy distribution system," she explained. It will allow the shields to absorb more firepower without collapsing. Arik examined the device, nodding slowly. Good work. Humans don't wait for perfection, they improve as they go. That's why we survive. Even as improvements continued, Arik understood that the galaxy was watching. Every success, every maneuver of the Dauntless would be analyzed. Rivals would look for weaknesses, spies would report every detail. Preparation was essential, and the first test came unexpectedly. A neutral star system, bordering Vera, sent a fleet to investigate the rumors of a powerful human ship. Its commanders were cautious but curious, hoping to either recruit humans to their cause or measure their threat. Arik met the fleet in orbit above Vera. Communications opened, and alien voices demanded explanation. Humans, they said, you have built a ship that does not belong in this sector. Why? Arik's voice was calm, confident. We built the Dauntless to protect our colony, our people. That is all. We do not seek conflict unless it is forced upon us, but we will defend ourselves, as any species would. The alien commanders exchanged glances. They had expected fear, submission, or excuses. Instead, they were met with quiet determination and confidence. It was a lesson they had not anticipated. Humans did not beg, nor did they cower. After tense hours of negotiation, the fleet withdrew. No attack came. But the message was clear. The galaxy could no longer ignore humanity. The humans had risen from scraps, and they had risen with pride. Word of the Dauntless spread like wildfire. Merchants and travelers spoke of a ship that bent the rules, that fought with creativity and courage, that survived against impossible odds. Colonies once loyal to the Council began questioning their allegiance. Some began to secretly send resources, hoping to learn from the humans. Others warned the Council that a new power was rising. Arik stood on the deck of the Dauntless one evening, looking out at the stars. The twin suns had set, leaving a sky filled with pinpoints of light. The universe seemed endless, vast and full of challenges, but it was also full of opportunity. Lyra joined him quietly. Do you think they'll come for us? She asked softly. Arik smiled faintly. They will try, but we will not back down. Humans survive because we refuse to be broken, because we take what others throw at us and turn it into strength. We have shown the galaxy that we are more than scraps. They gave us nothing, but we built everything. The crew below prepared for the next phase of expansion. More systems to explore, more defenses to build, and more alliances to form. The Dauntless was no longer just a ship. It was the heart of human ingenuity, a symbol of persistence, and a promise that humans would never be underestimated again. As the days passed, the colony of Vera thrived. Farmers and miners supplied the growing needs of the shipyard. Engineers trained new recruits, sharing skills and knowledge. Children learned to navigate basic systems and engines. Inspired by the adults around them, humanity was learning, growing, and preparing for whatever the universe might throw their way. Meanwhile, the Council continued to watch, uneasy. The humans had survived pirates, intimidated neighbors, and demonstrated ingenuity beyond expectation. That they had done it with nothing but scraps and sheer will angered some delegates and impressed others. Arik knew that sooner or later the Council or another powerful fleet would come to test humanity's limits. He also knew that the Dauntless and its crew were ready to face any challenge. For the first time, humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer small or weak. They had earned respect, though some might call it fear. And the Dauntless, born from scraps and determination, was the symbol of everything humans could accomplish when they refused to accept limits. The galaxy had noticed, and humanity was only beginning to show what they were capable of. The galaxy was old, older than any living race could remember. Stars had been born, lived their brilliant lives, and died long before many civilizations learned how to walk. In that endless span of time, the universe itself carried whispers, fragments of ancient messages, etched into ruins, burned into forgotten archives, or sung through the cosmic background radiation. The warnings were always the same. They carried the same haunting phrase written in languages older than planets. Do not awaken the humans. Do not provoke them. For countless millennia, these words drifted across the galaxy. Some believed them. Most did not. To the rising empires of the modern era, such words were nothing more than myths, old ghost stories left behind by extinct races, and so, as always, the warnings were ignored. Far in the Orion arm of the Milky Way, the dominion of Zir thrived. They were a proud people, scaled and regal, their empire spanning dozens of star systems. The dominion valued strength above all, and for centuries they had tested their might against weaker neighbors. Each time the result was the same: quick submission. To them, dominance was their destiny. It was within their council hall, built of black stone and glowing crystal, that the discussion of a small, insignificant species began. Humans, one counselor hissed, his voice echoing across the chamber. They are spreading too quickly. Colonies here, colonies there, multiplying like weeds. Their world, Earth, is but a single jewel in a backwater system, yet their ships are appearing across sectors that belong to us. Another leaned forward, eyes narrow. Their technology is curious, not refined, not elegant, but functional. Their ships lack grace. Their weapons are crude, yet they are persistent, too persistent. The High Sovereign of Zir listened silently, his long fingers tapping against the armrest of his throne. And what do they call themselves? Humanity? An ambitious word, but do they hold any true power? The chamber filled with murmurs. An elder counselor, older than most present, shifted uncomfortably. There are records, he said slowly, legends buried deep in archives even older than our empire. They speak of humans not as weaklings but as destroyers. Entire fleets broken, ancient empires brought low. They were described as unpredictable. The sovereign's eyes glowed coldly. Legends are nothing more than shadows. Stories meant to frighten the young. Yes, the first counselor agreed quickly. We are the Dominion. We bend stars to our will. Are we to be afraid of a race that still fights among itself? They are divided. They cannot stand against us, the hall filled with agreement. Pride drowned out caution. The warnings of history faded beneath the Dominion's certainty. While the Dominion debated humanity's worth, far across the stars, Earth was alive with motion. Humanity had not remained the same fragile species it once was. From the moment they had reached the skies, they had dreamed bigger, farther, and faster. The great wars of Earth were long behind them. Lessons had been learned in fire and loss, and though conflict had never fully disappeared, humanity had begun to look outward together. Colonies bloomed on nearby planets. Stations spun across orbits. Ships, both large and small, carried people into the dark frontier. They were not the most advanced. Their drives were slower than some alien crafts. Their weapons did not shine with exotic energies. But humanity had something others often overlooked: the will to adapt. On the Martian colony of New Dawn, children played under domes of glass, staring out at red deserts that once seemed uninhabitable. On Titan, miners carved life out of ice and methane seas, singing songs of Earth beneath strange skies. On Earth itself, blue oceans and green forests remained, guarded fiercely as the home that had birthed them. Humanity was not an empire. They were not conquerors. They were explorers, dreamers, survivors. Yet despite their quiet expansion, they were watched. The Dominion sent scouts. Silent ships with cloaked hulls drifted near human colonies, recording. They studied humans closely, certain they would find weakness. A report was delivered to the council. Humans are reckless, the scout captain declared. They rush into dangerous territories. They settle harsh worlds without hesitation. They bicker among themselves, divided into nations and alliances. And yet, they endure. Each loss only seems to fuel them further. The sovereign tilted his head. And their fleets? Their armies. Nothing compared to ours, the captain replied confidently. We could scatter them with a single strike. The council laughed, their pride swelling. The sovereign's smile was thin and sharp. Then it is decided. We shall extend our will to this humanity. Let them kneel before us, and their strength will serve the Dominion. No one in the chamber remembered the old warnings. No one recalled the faint whispers in the void etched in.